Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. We had a bumper day of cycling on this Sunday. We had the Vuelta España Stage 15, which is it's all wrapped into the same podcast and podcast players separate on YouTube. Then Britannia Classic, we'll have the Simac Ladies Tour recap on the rest day tomorrow. And of course, our Vuelta rest day recap with an interview with Jack Haig, I believe is booked here with Benji. As always, the show is supported by Cole. If you want to check out on Instagram, Cole put up a post about their partnership with us yesterday, which has been since the show's just about its inception, the Giro d'Italia last year. At the moment, Cole have a sale on, and you can use LR Vuelta 20, that's LR Vuelta 20, all caps, discount code for 20% off. Get yourself some performance cycling apparel at ridiculously discounted prices. You can check that out at www.lacole.cc. Vuelta España first. It looks like a big GC day. It was not a big GC day, 198 Ks. We had a long fight for the break because this profile, 15 Ks 5%, 9 Ks 5%, 20 Ks 5.5%, descent in the last Ks only 8.5 Ks at 4% for like a steady descent to the line. The first 50 to 70 Ks are flat or falls flat uphill, so hard for climbers who'd be good to get in this break. But there's some weird stuff going on at the start, Benji, honestly. Well, it kicked off early with like a really dangerous break and some pretty, I don't know, questionable tactics from Bahrain in particular.
Yes, certainly. We had, first of all, a group that got away of roughly 25 riders or more, even with Sepp Kuss in it. And that's quite surprising. That's actually a very clever thing to do for Jumbo, I would say, because he was 4 minutes and a half or so behind in GC, which means that he's the closest one in GC in the breakaway. So other teams would have to solve it in the peloton, unlike other days. So Jumbo would not have to pace if that is the case. And that's exactly what we saw in the peloton itself, because while a Caruso and a Bardet were in the breakaway to go for KOM points, we saw that obviously Bahrain would likely not chase in the peloton after that group with Kuss. But Movistar and Wanty didn't like that, because obviously Wanty wants to keep their lead and not give it away to Sepp Kuss. And Movistar seemed to be unhappy about that as well. But do you think that it's okay that Movistar did that and tried to chase down Kuss, or do you think that's a mistake?
I wouldn't have paced, because I don't know what Movistar's plan was today. If they wanted to have a defensive day with nothing happening, they had no plans with their satellite riders, Oliveira, Erviti, or Verona whenever they went up the road, maybe just Erviti and Verona. That was purely for those guys to get a stage win opportunity. I guess it makes sense because it makes an easier day for them. If they actually planned on using a satellite rider, if they're actually trying to use this last mountain stage before the rest day to do something, because satellite riders are important. I mean, these are fast climbs, particularly the last one, like draft is hugely important. If that was their plan, I don't really know why they're burning their team on the defensive chasing Sepp Kuss. And their risk-reward in terms of winning the Vuelta is the opposite of Roglic. They don't have outstanding time trialists. They're already behind on GC. The mountain stages are running out. We now, third week is hard, don't get me wrong, but every time you don't try is another day that Roglic, inches towards the red jersey and the TT. Why are you chasing Sepp Kuss, who is, I think, before this stage, 5 minutes behind Eiking and a good 2 minutes 50 behind Enric Mas? So say Kuss wins this stage by, 3 minutes. Okay, that's not great, but that's a huge effort from him to win by 3 minutes. They don't have to chase that hard all day to keep it in closer check. I mean, the guy that won this stage, Intermarché, paced all day and they kept it under 3 minutes to the win. It's hard to win by more than 3 minutes. Once you have Kuss up there on GC, maybe in provisional red, that creates difficult situations for Jumbo-Visma. Does Kuss close Lopez yesterday if he's in the red jersey, Benji?
That's a good question. I think that he would likely not, because they would still have the same strategy and Kruijswijk would still be pacing in that same group. So when Kruijswijk is done, Kuss would end up being the chaser ahead of Roglic still.
Even in red?
Even in red, Roglic is the leader, hands down, because of the time trial. You got to count 2 minutes next to that for Roglic in the time trial. So Roglic is leader, even if Kuss is a minute ahead of him in GC. And Kuss would be pacing ahead of Roglic in that situation, and they would do exactly the same thing. The one thing that's different is that they might not pace as hard with Kuss, and they would perhaps lose 15 seconds on the day because they would try and prevent losing time with Kuz on that stage then.
I always thought allowing Koos to go up the road, to take time, to maybe create some doubts within Jumbo-Visma. We've seen it twice in the last year. Hindley and Kelderman, it creates difficult decisions. It doesn't make it as linear, like everyone pays for Roglic. And obviously the most recent example, which Roglic was involved in, is Pogacar and McNulty at Basque Country Stage 6. So if Jumbo-Visma did the sensible thing and they're like, okay, nice, you've got red, Sepp, but we don't trust you to hold it even before the TT, then it doesn't work. But I don't know, Benji. I think it's for Movistar to win the Vuelta, they need to do something weird needs to happen. I don't see Enric Mas taking what's he behind Roglic on GC right now? He's behind by 40 seconds. He's going to lose in the TT over a minute. So he's got to gain like 3 minutes on him plus. You got to have a weird race, weird stuff happening, and I think they should embrace the weirdness.
Embrace the weirdness.
Yeah,
that's a t-shirt.
I think so, and I think also means that if you want to attack with Lopez up the road, well, Roglic doesn't have his best mountain domestique right there to close it down. He'll have Kruijswijk, but he doesn't have Koos to close. So that's my argument, Benji. Do you agree with any of that, or do you actually think what they did? I don't think it's horrendous, but you think it's a bit defensive.
It's a defensive move, but I don't think it's the end of the world either. So while I do agree with everything you say, I don't think it would have made too much change if, for example, the fact that I think they spent like Erviti and so forth on it only. So it's not like they spent Verona on it because, well, he was in that front group. So
Erviti was in the front group at that time.
Oh, okay.
They were pacing with Oliveira or Verona.
Okay, I think it was not Verona, but I could be wrong on that one. But still, like, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, it's a question that we were able to discuss about. So it surely was a questionable move at some point. But after that, we had some more questionable moves with our legend himself, Arashiro, involved. He was setting up moves for Caruso to bridge over to a group that got away, because from the group of Gus, 6 riders got away, including Andreas Kron. Those were at the front. And Bardet and Caruso, who were with Gus, were not in the break anymore. So Caruso, if he wanted to take K1 points today to try and burn the lead of Bardet a bit, then he had to go in the breakaway. So Arashiro started pacing to try and keep the gap at 20 seconds and lower it even, because the gap had gone up a bit. And then Caruso went for an attack on a bit of a false flat uphill. And that failed. Everybody started attacking a tiny bit. Gap stayed on 20, 30 seconds. And then Arashiro did it again, but only for like 5 seconds of pacing, and Caruso launched again. And then it went back to the peloton. And all this stuff is it's a bit questionable, because it's a bit desperate, it feels like. Because if the gap is 25 seconds, you're not going to cross it alone with Caruso. And he attacked on the left side of the road and tried to get away, and nobody really jumped with him. And at a certain point, the entire peloton was in his wheel again, so they tried to jump a bit too much at that point. So it wasn't working out for Caruso, and he just should have been in the split in the first place. That's everything you can get out of this. And he wasn't. But luckily for the peloton, who still wanted to fight for the stage, perhaps, we had a problem in the fast group. Kron actually had a bit of a bike issue and started kicking his bike while riding it, and that seemed to have caused some confusion in the group, because then suddenly 2 riders were off the front, including Kort and I think Sivakov, but I'm not sure about it.
Yes, it was.
And then the rest of that group got caught by the peloton, and those 2 stayed ahead of the peloton for quite a bit, eventually got caught again because everybody kept attacking. And then finally, we had our attacking group of the day, and that included legend himself, soon to be retired, unfortunately, Fabio Aru, Rafa Maika as well, and also, who the hell was the third rider in that group?
Van Heels. Yeah, Van Heels.
Yes.
You always forget the Belgian riders, Benji.
Sorry.
I'm now going to wrap up this stage pretty quickly, because we've just described all the action. I know it sounds exciting, but Rafael Maika went on like an 80-kilometer plus solo, dropped Aru. He's just riding solo on this stage, like Caruso the other day. As I said, it sounds exciting, but would you sign up to watch Maika pace on his own for 2 hours? Probably not. So I didn't go see the burst today, but I wish I had. And then behind, Stefan Kruijswijk's in a group with Verona and co. He goes solo. He sits about 90 seconds behind Maika. And that's all that happens for literally the rest of this stage. No one tries anything on the climbs. GC group Intermarché, who actually like pacing.
Don't forget about De La Cruz, man.
I'll get to what did he do? Attack later.
Yeah, he did a small attack on the last climb, right? With Mankeys on his wheel.
Yeah, so Intermarché were doing a really good job. Rain Taramay pacing all the time. And Micah goes solo, wins the stage, wins the combativity. Great result for him. Back to his roots, really, winning stages. And I feel bad, but like there's nothing tactical to discuss. He just rode away and cried, so I couldn't close it. But we knew it was going to be this result after like 35Ks to go. De La Cruz attacks on this last climb, as Benji says, 8K 4%. Nothing's been happening. No one hard pacing all day. And Louis Meintjes marks him. Not pacing for odd Christian Eichen. So Louis Meintjes like, no, I'm putting my 11th on GC above the guy currently in the red jersey. And yeah, instead of pulling it back and controlling it all day, Meintjes marks De La Cruz. And who was the Caja guy, Benji?
Lastra, I think? I'm not sure about it. He tried to get the combativity, of course, from Micah, and it almost worked. But yeah, there was a bit of an internet battle for the combativity because some Spanish Twitter account decided to organize a mass voting on Twitter to vote for Jay Vine in the combativity website, and everybody voted for it. The backend service of the website went down, and eventually Vine didn't win, and we don't know how. So Micah won combativity, like you said, and not Lastra, which is a bit unfortunate because I feel like that one small attack by Lastra certainly deserved it more.
Yeah, I mean, what a stage. And then that wasn't the end of some funny attacks. And this is where Benji's criticism of Caruso and Bahrain, I think Bahrain, they didn't have a good stage today. It was a nothing stage. Yeah. There's no GC action on. They've burned poles in the break ahead, who's got there and then promptly lost touch with it. They've burned Caruso, probably the best domestique they've got left. Landers, like, I don't know why he's still in the race. He's getting dropped before like Arno Demar and Jakobsen. And Adam Yates attacked once, marked by Lopez on this 8K 4% climb just before the descent. Like no one's paced to set it up. What's the point in this? He goes again. And then Lopez is like, why am I marking this? Well, why do I care? Like the most he can gain is 15 to 20 seconds. He's 30 seconds behind Bernal, I think, on GC and way behind Lopez. Why am I going to do this effort? And so he stops. And so Yates actually gets a gap. And at that point, it's up to Bahrain to pace. Either Maida for Haig. Like Haig is, you don't want Adam Yates getting close to you before this third week if you can avoid it for no reason, particularly on a stage where nothing's been going on. But Caruso's not there. Maida doesn't pace. And Haig hasn't snapped onto Yates' wheel. So we guess that Kuz basically just not slow pace, but he just keeps the gap steady behind. We don't have any camera action of Yates, by the way. We see him attack and then we see him roll over the line later. He gains 15 seconds for free. And it's what Lopez did yesterday. Low risk. You're not going to get dropped. Low to medium reward, 15 seconds. And your team didn't invest anything. So it looked like a silly attack, but he kind of got a bit of a reward out of it. And he's a bit closer to, it's not going to really threaten Roglic. But yeah, for Haig, it's just an unnecessary 15 seconds lost. And I don't know. What was your view on it, Benji? Is it really just an irrelevant attack in the grand scheme of things?
I think it's an irrelevant attack in the grand scheme of things, but I think it brings more trouble to Ineos perhaps because now their leaders are closer together again in GC. So once again, the question arises, who the hell is going to ride for who when one of them, has to start riding? And now they're back again within 15 seconds of each other in GC, which makes that question happen again. But hey, I guess we'll find out in the coming mountain stage if that comes into play or not, because it has been coming into play in the first week. So it's not unsurprising that it could be in the next portion. But I'm not really worried when it comes to Haig versus Yates personally, because I feel like I trust Haig more for the third week, but I think I've said that enough that I trust Yates less for the third week. But then again, if all the stages happen like this, then he's likely to survive because like nothing's happening.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
he can afford to do such an attack without seeing an immediate hell break down on him in the coming stages if nobody else does anything.
And also, he lost 16 seconds to Lopez and 12 seconds to Haig yesterday on that easy stage as well. So not the most enthralling mountain stages, particularly from a GC perspective, on this weekend for the Vuelta. The man, who did you pick yesterday, Benji, for the stage?
Andreas Kron, but he had that bike problem when he was in the breakaway.
And I picked you on Izagirre. So we had, I felt validated, and I was like, oh, Izagirre's on. And then, Caruso just wasn't happy with that breakaway. But fantastic win for Micah, wins the stage, 1 minute and 27 ahead of Kruijswijk. Hamilton third, who we didn't see, is in no man's land all day, 2:19. Then Yates comes fourth, 15 seconds ahead of a group of Ciccone, Odd Christian Eichen, Grosjean, De La Cruz, Mas Lopez, Haig, Vlasov, Roglic, Bernal, Mader, all the GC guys you would expect, Guillaume Martin. So Odd Christian Eichen keeps the red jersey over the second rest day. Intermarché, I think, outrageously good Vuelta. My other question to you, Benji, is Kruijswijk dangling in no man's land. Do you, as the DS, I know Adi Engels has said, he's not there to make actual strategic decisions and communicate them. But if you were the DS, what would you have said when it became very evident that he wasn't catching Micah?
Well, the problem is that he's riding in second, and I think that's where the problem of decision making lies. Because I personally would have said probably at the top of Mijares already, or even before the top, when it was clear that it's likely not going to happen that he closes down Micah on the climb, that he should not be spending much more energy, because we know that Kruijswijk is not a good descender, nor is Micah really. He's not the best descender in the world either, but I still rate Micah's ascending higher than Kruijswijk's descending. They were always kind of at the back of the groups when they were descending together in the Giros in the past, so that's how I rate their descending against each other, and Kruijswijk was the one losing the gap while Micah wasn't. So I would have likely set somewhere 5 kilometers from the top of Mijares, 10 kilometers from the top of Mijares even, that it was probably a no-go to make this happen. And he kept on going, and he kept on riding for second. And the problem is, if you're riding second and you make the decision to wait, and Micah has a crash or something, or completely blows up, which was unlikely in my eyes. Well, the blowing up, I can't predict the crash, obviously. Well, then he could still be in contention to win the stage, and that's the risk you make when you make a decision like that. Is Micah going to crash or not? You can't predict it. So if you say that Kruijswijk should wait and he crashes, then you're giving up a stage win. If he doesn't crash and he rides away to victory like today, then you're spending energy uselessly.
It's a rest day tomorrow. I wouldn't have told him to slow up either. I think let him do his thing if he wants to do it. But you can say, if you want to stop, you can. There's no pressure. It's you can make that a rider decision, I think. But the GC going into the second rest day, Odd Christian Eichen, 54 seconds ahead of Guillaume Martin. Guillaume Martin not able to take a second, I don't think, on Odd Christian Eichen since their breakaway. Roglic in third on 1:36, which is 24 plus 11, 37 seconds ahead, I thought, something like that, ahead of Enric Mas. Lopez is actually a fair bit back. He's about a minute and 28 after Roglic. Haig is another 31 seconds after Lopez. So if we're assuming, which maybe is something to discuss, Odd Christian Eichen and Guillaume Martin cracked badly in the third week. Haig's only 31 behind Lopez now. Bernal is on 4:21, which is about 45 seconds after Haig. Yates is 13 seconds after Bernal, and this is all now 3 minutes after Roglic. And then Sepp Kuss on 4:59, Grosjean on 5:31. My maths haven't been too good there. But Benji, Odd Christian Eichen, Guillaume Martin, we don't think they're winning, but they've held on pretty well. I think top 10 for Odd Christian Eichen is very much in play.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that every day that he survives like this, then he comes closer to a higher position in GC. Obviously, his time trial is not looking like it will be insanely good, but still, if he loses 3 minutes on the time trial, for example, let's think about that.
3
on a bad case scenario. If he loses 3 minutes on Roglic there, which is actually quite likely based on his previous time trial performances. So I'm not actually making this number up. The problem is that we don't know how well he decided to go in those time trials. So that's the counterpoint of that. But if he loses 3 minutes, then he's currently sitting at the 6th spot in GC, roughly on the level of Lopez. Obviously, I see on the big mountain stage him losing at least 1 to 2 minutes on the big guns. And if that is the case, he is finishing 8th, 9th, 7th in the Vuelta. And if that is the case, then it's a very good result. I'd say that stage 20 probably suits him better than the big mountain stages, but I feel like they both kind of suit him so far in this Vuelta. So it's hard to say, oh, this one fits better or this one fits better. He seems like he's pretty good on both ends. But they've got two candidates for that. What if they put Mikey's in the breakaway like we've been asking for a few times now, in one of the mountain stages in week 3, and the break wins that stage, and Mankey's ends in top 10 as well, and they're finishing 7th and 8th in this Vuelta. What a bloody Grand Tour for Intermarché.
Exactly. And the thing is, to come top 10, the guys he's got to beat, it's not Roglic, obviously. It's Grosschartner or Vlasov, or maybe Kuss loses time because he's doing domestique duties and maybe won't have a great TT either. And it reminds me of that Pöstelberger TT, Benji, who obviously bigger flat engine, of course. Yep. But that TT he did at the Criterium de Dauphiné, where he came 9th, and it's like, it makes you realise most of these guys, if they don't have a chance to win and aren't GC riders, they probably just don't try in the majority of the TTs they do. And Pöstelberger beat Thomas in that T, and he came 2 seconds after McNulty. So on like a rolly, this is a 16K TT. So, yeah, but
a different rider though. So I'd expected better time trial from a Pöstelberger if he hadn't time trialed the Formula Hiking personally though. And also I don't know if I trust the cube bikes that they have at for time trials, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Jesus, did we offer to let them sponsor the pod, and they said no? That's a bit of a deep from
Benji.
They,
I remember there was an argument a few weeks ago where Baklands came in and spoke about their equipment, and the entire Belgian media started talking about Wanty's equipment, and then one of the team equipment first people had to like talk about it, that it was actually not that bad, and so there's something there, but I don't know if it's actually accurate or not. But at least we have some drama about it, so I guess that's fun.
That was the Vuelta's second week. What did we predict was 1, 2, 3, Benji? I think we predicted, I said Roglic, Mas, Haig. I think we agreed.
Yep, in week 2 at least.
Yeah, it's
I don't want to talk about my initial ones.
The GC on the first rest day was pretty much the same. There's been no GC changes, really, in this second week. As expected,
really.
I know. It's a bit of a shame, but third week looks pretty good. But that was the recap of stage 15 of the Vuelta a España. Congrats to Rafael Maica for winning. He did a good, I think, a better than I expected performance, helping Pogačar in the Tour de France. His last World Tour win was 4 years ago in the Vuelta. So just like Bardet, he has not won, not just a World Tour race, any race in 4 years. So a big win for him. They both kind of followed the same career path in the GC abyss from 27 to 30, sort of 31 years old. But yeah, great win for him. We hope you enjoyed the recap. If you want to support the channel, you can like the video down below if you're watching on YouTube, or give us a rating or review on podcast players. Until tomorrow's rest day recap for the Vuelta. Ciao.